Welcome to the Deep Dive. We sift through the latest research, from psychology labs to financial markets, to bring you the insights that matter. Today, we're digging into something that shapes, well, almost everything around us, often without us even noticing. It's a cognitive bias called the halo effect.
It really is. It sounds simple, right? A positive impression in one area just spills over, affects how you see totally separate things about a person or a product, even a whole company.
Yeah, it's like our brain takes a mental shortcut, a powerful one,
Absolutely. It's basically generalization going a bit wild.
and we've pulled together research from all over: finance, psych, retail studies, political science. The goal today is to really pin down what this bias is, where it came from, and then look at the, honestly, sometimes huge effects it has.
Right, understanding that initial positive glow and then seeing just how far it spreads.
Where does the idea even come from, academically speaking?
Well, the basic phenomenon was noticed way back 1907 by Frederick L. Wells. But the name, the actual halo effect, that was coined by the psychologist Edward Thorndike. Big name.
Thorndike, right? When was that?
That was in his 1920 article, A Constant Error in Psychological Ratings.
A constant error. I like that. It suggests it's not just a mistake, but something systematic, like it's part of how our minds work to fill in blanks.
Exactly. It's a feature, not really a bug, designed to cope when we don't have all the information.
Makes sense.
And, while we talk about the positive halo, there's the flip side, too. The negative version.
Ah, the horn effect, or the devil effect.
Yeah, sometimes called the reverse halo effect, too. Same idea, but negative. You dislike one single thing, maybe someone looks unfriendly, or a company had one scandal, and that just taints everything else.
So you assume everything they do must be bad.
Pretty much. It stops you from seeing anything positive, blocks any balanced view, like, oh, I headed their last phone, so their new laptop must be garbage too, even if they're totally unrelated.
Okay, so let's start where a lot of the early research did. Psychology, and specifically, physical attractiveness.
Right, the classic starting point. Those early studies basically ran with that, that cultural idea, what is beautiful is good. It's almost automatic for many people.
And these experiments showed we easily jump from attractive to assuming things like, oh, they must be more talented or trustworthy or kinder.
They did demonstrate that, yeah. But the really important work came a bit later, looking at how strong this effect actually was, refining it.
You mean Robert Kaplan's work, finding it was maybe less powerful than people first thought?
Exactly that. Kaplan's replication studies found the attractiveness halo was, well, more limited. That nuance is really key here.
Okay, limited how?
Well, when they looked at judging personality traits, someone's attractiveness only explained about 25% of the variation across all the different attributes people were rating.
Huh. So it wasn't like people thought, oh, they're attractive, so they must be amazing at everything.
Right. The sort of general universal halo, pretty weak, actually. It wasn't boundless.
So where was the effect strong?
It clustered around specific things. The studies consistently found 3 traits really linked strongly with attractiveness, especially when rating women.
Which were?
Sexiness, femininity, or masculinity, and just liking. People found attractive individuals more likable, maybe more fitting gender norms. But that didn't automatically mean they thought they were, say, smarter or more diligent.
Okay, that distinction is important. It wasn't about objective competence.
Not necessarily, which leads to the really interesting part. How the halo interacted with actual performance.
You mean like judging someone's work?
Exactly. This is where it acts like that mental shortcut. Kaplan found the bias from attractiveness was strongest when the thing being judged, say, an essay in the experiment, was actually kind of bad, low quality.
Wait, so if the essay was terrible, being attractive gave the author a boost?
A significant perceptual bump, yeah. But, and this is critical, if the essay was judged to be high quality, the halo effect basically vanished.
Right.
Looks didn't matter.
So excellence speaks for itself, but mediocrity gets a helping hand from good looks.
That's a good way to put it. The halo doesn't really make great things seem greater. It works best when there's ambiguity or the quality is just low. It sort of softens the blow of a poor performance.
Like a tiebreaker when you're unsure.
Precisely. It minimizes how bad mediocrity or failure looks.
Wow. That has huge implications for things like grading, hiring.
Yeah.
Anywhere looks might play a role, even unconsciously. The risk isn't boosting the stars, it's protecting the underperformers.
It absolutely creates a kind of protective cushion. We see this pattern pop up again and again. If the person judging lacks the expertise to really assess the quality, they fall back on the easy cue, the halo.
We should also touch on the gender dynamics you mentioned. There was something specific in those early studies.
Yes, a really important asymmetry. The research suggested this attractiveness halo in those contexts was mainly driven by male judges rating female targets.
So men rating women showed the bias strongly. What about women rating women?
The effect wasn't really there. Female judges weren't positively swayed by the attractiveness of other women in the same way.
Interesting. So it wasn't just a universal beauty is good thing, but maybe tied into specific social or intergender dynamics in that setup.
It suggests that, yeah, or at least that the stereotype functions differently when you're judging someone of your own gender. Maybe competition kicks in or different criteria are used. It wasn't a simple universal effect.
Okay, let's shift gears from individual minds to the marketplace.
Yeah.
The corporate halo. This feels like where the bias gets deliberately weaponized almost.
Oh, absolutely. Strategically employed is the term. It's why you might love one product from a company and suddenly assume everything they make must be great.
Like the classic Apple example, right? The iPod success wasn't just about selling iPods.
Exactly. That sleek design, the coolness factor, it created this massive halo. People started thinking Apple was just fundamentally innovative and high quality across the board. That perception bled over to their computers, later the iPhone.
People over-extrapolate like crazy.
Totally. It's that wheat fields mean good light bulbs idea from the sources. Logically absurd, but emotionally powerful.
Right.
And companies know this. They actively cultivate it, especially through CSR.
Corporate social responsibility, that's the big tool now.
It's a very sophisticated one. The research breaks down how CSR can create value for a firm in basically 3 ways.
Okay, what are they?
Well, the first 2 are kind of expected. One is costly signaling. Think GE building giant windmills. It signals they're high-tech and green. It's a visible, expensive commitment.
Right, showing off their eco-credentials.
Second is delegated giving. The company makes it easy for you, the consumer, to feel charitable. Like they donate a slice of profits automatically. You feel good, they hand her the admin.
Okay, makes sense. And the third channel.
That's the pure halo effect. The CSR activities just generate this general positive feeling, this overall goodwill about the company. It's not about signaling a specific product quality, it's just liking the company more. And that goodwill can act as a shield.
A shield that extends even into legal trouble. I saw something about that.
Yes, a fascinating study on the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, the FCPA. That's the law against bribing foreign officials.
Right.
They found pretty strong evidence of what they called a prosecutorial halo effect.
Meaning, companies known for being good got off lighter when caught bribing.
Essentially, yes. If a firm had a high CSR score, specifically using the KLD score, which measures social and environmental performance, they tended to receive lower fines than expected.
Wow. Even after controlling for how big the bribe was or how much harm it caused.
Exactly. Even after accounting for the actual damage, the reputation seemed to soften the blow.
Let's clarify that KLD score. What exactly is it measuring?
KLD stands for Kinder, Lindenberg, Dominy. It's a really detailed rating system, widely used. It looks at environmental stuff, social issues, governance, ESG, basically. Tracks both the good things a company does, the strengths, and the bad things, the concerns.
So it's a pretty comprehensive measure of corporate character.
It is. And the fact that this score influenced legal penalties is striking. It suggests the halo can penetrate even systems designed to be objective, like the law.
But how does that even work? Aren't FCPA fines supposed to be about the crime itself? Like disgorging illicit profits, punishing the bad act? How can past good deeds justify a lower fine for bribery?
That's the puzzle, right? It seems the halo acts like an implicit character witness. Prosecutors might unconsciously see the bribery as maybe an isolated incident, a lapse by a rogue employee, rather than reflecting a corrupt corporate culture.
Because the KLD score suggests the company is fundamentally good.
Exactly. It changes the narrative from bad company to good company that did a bad thing.
Was there any specific type of CSR that was particularly powerful in creating this legal shield?
Yeah, the study found it was mainly driven by how the company treated its community and its employees. The community KLD score, measuring things like local philanthropy, had the biggest impact. We're talking estimates of like $10 to $12 million less in fines for each point increase.
That is a huge financial benefit from reputation.
It is. And potentially it wasn't just about lower fines. The research also hinted that companies with higher KLD scores might have been less likely to even be prosecuted under the FCPA in the first place.
So the halo might influence who even gets investigated.
Potentially. A good reputation could make prosecutors think twice, maybe see it as not worth pursuing, an early filter.
Okay, so CSR builds this shield. But what happens when a crisis hits? There are two competing ideas here, right? The shield versus something else.
Right. You've got the halo as shield idea associated with researchers like Coombs and Holliday, and then the opposite, the fallen angel effect.
Let's take the shield first. The idea is that a good reputation protects you.
Basically, yeah, you build up this reservoir of trust, of goodwill. When a crisis happens, especially something like a human error accident, that prior reputation acts as a buffer. Their research found this shield really only worked for companies with very strong reputations, like top-tier scores.
And it helps even if the company is clearly responsible.
It seems to, particularly for those human error situations. It prevents the reputational damage from being catastrophic. It helps counter that tendency we have, the fundamental attribution error.
Remind us what that is again.
It's our tendency to blame bad outcomes on someone's character or internal traits rather than the situation. So if a plane crashes, we jump to assuming incompetence or negligence in the airline's core.
Right.
The halo as shield stops that immediate jump. Because the reputation is so good, people give the company the benefit of the doubt. They might blame the specific error, but not condemn the whole organization's character.
So a company like Patagonia has an issue. People might blame the specifics, but the overall positive image holds.
That's the idea. The shield blunts the impact. Stakeholders didn't judge reputations as harshly in human error crises if the prior reputation was strong. The halo provided that character defense.
Seems like a solid case for building reputation. But then there's the fallen angel effect. What's that?
This is the dark side of having a great reputation, especially if you've been very vocal about it. It suggests that for companies with high CSR scores, especially self-reported ones, negative news can actually trigger a bigger market penalty.
Bigger? Why?
Because you've set expectations so high. When you fail to meet them, maybe mandatory data reveals your greenhouse gas emissions are worse than everyone thought. Investors feel betrayed. It's a violation of that trust you built.
So the halo becomes a liability. Falling off the pedestal hurts more.
Exactly. The study quantified this. For firms with high CSR scores, releasing unexpectedly bad GHG emissions data led to a larger drop in market value compared to firms that hadn't made such strong green claims.
Do we have numbers on that?
Yeah, they estimated that for a firm with a CSR score of 1.0, the market value drop linked to emissions increased by about $59,000 for every step up in its CSR score. The total estimated penalty hit something like $162,000 per metric kiloton of GHG emissions. It's a significant financial punishment for that perceived hypocrisy.
Wow. So building a halo can be risky if you can't live up to it.
Especially when transparency increases, like with mandatory reporting. The market gets better at spotting the disconnect.
Okay, let's bring this down to the everyday level. Retail. We see this halo effect when we're shopping too, right? Especially with store brands.
Definitely. It gets a little complex here, though, because the influence can flow both ways. Is it the store's overall image making you like the store brand product that's the halo effect? Or is it your experience with the store's products that shapes your view of the store itself? That's called the summary construct model.
Right, so the store's reputation rubs off on the product, or the product experience builds the store's reputation. What determines which way it goes?
The key factor seems to be how familiar you are with the specific private label product.
Familiarity. Makes sense. How does that work?
When you have low familiarity, you've never tried that store brand salsa before the halo effect tends to dominate. You don't know the salsa, but maybe you trust the store generally, good service, clean aisles, whatever.
So that positive store image transfers over to the salsa. I like this store, so the salsa is probably okay.
Exactly. The store image fills that information gap. But once you have high familiarity, you buy that salsa every week, you know exactly what it tastes like. Then the summary construct model takes over.
Meaning your opinion of the store is now partly based on your experience with the salsa and their other products you know well.
Precisely. Your direct product experience aggregates up to influence your view of the retailer rather than the other way around.
Did this hold true for everything they tested, like food versus clothes?
Mostly, but with a key difference. For private brand foods, it was clean. Low familiarity equals halo effect. High familiarity is summary construct, just like we discussed.
And clothing.
For private brand clothing, low familiarity still meant the halo effect dominated. But interestingly, when familiarity was high, both models seemed to be at play. The halo effect and the summary construct.
Why would the store's image still matter for clothes even when you know the brand well?
Well, Clothing is often more about image, right? It's a higher involvement purchase than groceries. That store brand shirt isn't just fabric. It carries the store's identity, its style, maybe its perceived status.
Ah, so the store's overall brand image, its fashion halo, stays relevant, even if you know the shirt's quality.
That seems to be the idea. It's tied more closely to the retailer's curated image than, say, a can of beans.
This ties back to that idea of congruence we talked about with CSR sponsorships, doesn't it?
Right.
The fit between the activity and the brand.
Absolutely central. People form much more positive attitudes when the sponsorship aligns with the company's image or product. Think an outdoor gear company sponsoring park cleanups.
Makes intuitive sense. High congruence feels authentic.
Right. And that congruent activity can also act as a buffer if bad news hits the company.
Awesome.
Well, the study showed negative info obviously made attitudes worse overall. But if the company had this strong, congruent, positive activity going on, like that environmental sponsorship, it helped protect brand attitudes and purchase intentions somewhat. The positive halo from the relevant good deed provided some resilience.
Okay, let's pivot again to a totally different field, politics and geography. There's a spatial halo effect.
Yeah, this is a fascinating application. First suggested around 2013, the hypothesis is that support for certain political outcomes, like far-right voting in Europe or GOP votes in the U.S., might be higher in places that are ethnically quite uniform but are located right next to areas with high immigrant populations.
So it's not about the diversity in your own backyard, but seeing it just over the fence.
That's the core idea. It's the proximity to perceived difference, not necessarily living within it. Researchers Miller and Grubsick tested this for the 2016 U.S. election.
How do you even measure that spatially? It sounds tricky.
They used a specialized technique called geographically weighted regression, or GWR.
GWR. Can you break that down? Sounds complex.
Think of it like this. Standard analysis looks for relationships that hold true everywhere, like a national average. GWR is like using a local microscope. It lets the relationship between variables, say, proximity to immigrants and voting, actually change from place to place.
Ah, so it doesn't assume the effect is the same in rural Maine as it is in downtown LA.
Exactly. It captures that local variation, that spatial non-stationarity, crucial for a country as diverse as the U.S.
And how did they define the halo variable itself, geographically?
They found a relative measure worked best. Basically, they looked at the difference between the immigrant share in the highest immigrant neighboring county and the immigrant share in the home county.
So it's about the contrast. They have way more immigrants next door than we do here.
Precisely. That relative difference seemed to be the key driver, more so than just the absolute number of immigrants nearby.
What did they find using GWR in the 2016 election?
They did find evidence for a positive spatial halo effect on GOP votes overall, similar to what's seen with far-right parties in Europe, but crucially, GWR showed it wasn't uniform.
Where was it strongest?
The effect was strongest and positive in those districts with the lowest immigrant share themselves, like less than 10%.
So the least diverse places were most influenced by diversity nearby.
That's what it looked like. But here's the twist. In districts that already had a higher immigrant share, say over 20%, the spatial halo effect actually turned negative or disappeared.
Negative, meaning being next to more diversity actually reduced the GOP vote share in those areas.
In some areas, yes. It suggests the threat or reaction associated with the halo is strongest in homogeneous areas perceiving change nearby. Once a certain level of local diversity exists, that specific spatial dynamic seems to change or reverse. It really supports the idea that it's about the relative difference.
Did this neighboring group effect show up for other demographics too?
It did. They found a similar positive halo effect for the percentage of Black and Hispanic residents in neighboring counties. Even when the home county's own Hispanic percentage didn't correlate significantly with the vote, having a higher percentage Hispanic next door did.
Wow. So the perception of who lives nearby can be more politically potent than who lives in your own community. That's a powerful spatial effect.
It really underscores how perceptions of the surrounding environment, not just local reality, can shape political behavior.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground. Psychology, corporations, politics. Let's turn to maybe the most critical area, healthcare, the halo of hospitality.
Yeah, this is a really striking, maybe even disturbing example of the halo effect's unintended consequences. It comes from looking at patient satisfaction in hospitals.
The issue being that patients, well, we're not medical experts, right? It's hard for us to judge the actual quality of the medical care we receive.
Exactly. There's a huge information gap. We don't know if the surgery was technically perfect or if the infection control is top-notch. So what do we judge?
The stuff we can see and experience, The room, the food, how nice the nurses are.
Precisely. The research looking at thousands of U.S. hospitals found patient satisfaction scores are heavily driven by these room and board aspects. The hospitality creates a halo of goodwill.
While the actual medical excellence, or even patient safety metrics, they don't drive satisfaction nearly as much.
Shockingly, no. Things like having a quiet room, good nurse communication, cleanliness, even pain management, these visible experiential factors had a much bigger impact on satisfaction scores than objective measures like medical quality or the hospital's mortality rate.
Can you give us a sense of the scale of that difference?
Yeah, the numbers are pretty stark. When they compared standardized scores, nurse communication had roughly 3 times the impact on satisfaction as the hospital's overall medical quality score did.
3 times.
And just having a quiet room, that alone had a 40% larger effect on satisfaction than the technical quality of care. Patients are basically rating the hotel aspects much more heavily than the hospital aspects.
Because that's what they feel equipped to judge.
Right. They use the easily observable front stage performance of hospitality as a proxy for the hard-to-observe medical quality.
This must create some really weird incentives in the hospital market, especially where hospitals compete fiercely for patients.
It creates a definite paradox. The study found that in those highly competitive markets, yes, patient satisfaction was higher. Hospitals were clearly responding to patient preferences.
Yeah. There's always a but.
But the actual medical quality was lower in those same competitive markets.
Lower? How does that happen?
Because the market forces are pushing hospitals to invest in the things that boost satisfaction scores, the visible hospitality, the quiet rooms, the friendly staff. Those things attract patients. Investing in less visible, behind-the-scenes technical excellence that actually saves lives, that doesn't move the satisfaction needle as much, so it gets less priority under competitive pressure.
That's kind of terrifying.
Yeah.
Hospitals are incentivized to be better hotels rather than better hospitals.
In a sense, yes. Rewarded for the performance art of care over the core medical substance. And this isn't just hospitals. This pattern of visible metrics crowding out true quality happens elsewhere, too.
Where else do we see this?
Think about higher education. Intense competition can push colleges towards focusing on amenities, the college's summer camp vibe. Metrics like teaching evaluations get huge weight.
Even though studies show those evaluations don't correlate well with actual student learning.
Exactly. Sometimes they even correlate negatively with learning, but positively with how easy the course was perceived to be. The halo of a good experience can overshadow actual educational rigor.
And the media seems like another prime example.
Oh, definitely. Journalism today. The traditional idea of newsworthiness is constantly battling the online market for clicks.
Clickbait versus substance.
Right. Publishers get rewarded for headlines and content that grab attention, that feel engaging, whether or not the information is truly important, accurate, or well-researched. It's easier for a reader to judge if a headline is catchy than if the underlying reporting is solid. The halo of engagement often wins out over informational integrity. Visibility trumps merit.
So looking back across all these areas, psychology, business, politics, healthcare, media, the halo effect is just incredibly widespread.
It really is.
Yeah.
And its power comes from that core function, filling information gaps. When we can't easily judge the complex reality, the quality of work, the ethics of a company, the skill of a doctor, our brains grab on to something simple and visible.
Attractiveness, a CSR report, a quiet room.
Exactly. And we let that positive signal color our entire judgment. It's a shortcut that often leads us astray, rewarding surface attributes over deeper, often invisible quality.
It rewards the things that are easy to show, not necessarily the things that are truly good.
That's the crux of it. Attractiveness covers for a bad essay. Good community relations reduce fines for bribery. A pleasant hospital stay masks lower medical standards. The research consistently shows this pressure to optimize the visible halo generators.
Which leaves us with a really challenging final thought. If this halo effect is so powerful, rewarding the visible over the vital, and if competition actually makes it worse sometimes by prioritizing those visible things, then what kind of systems could we even build? Beyond just hoping for more transparency, how do we design ways to genuinely reward the crucial non-obvious qualities, the medical skill, the ethical core, the actual talent, when that halo of hospitality or the halo of image is just so much stronger, so much easier for us to grasp?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it? How do you make true quality shine brighter than the halo?